What is up, everyone, and welcome to another Bitcoin market update. In these videos, you will learn how to use technical analysis to forecast price movements in your favorite cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and others. So let's dive into it here with Bitcoin on the weekly time frame. So starting off with Bitcoin here on the weekly time frame, you can see that the first thing that I am going to be looking at here is the volume. So as we see, the last 2 weeks here, we had slightly decreasing bull volume, at least on this exchange. And this week we have lower volume as well. Obviously, the week has not finished off yet. We still have a day and 6 hours left. But if we see declining bull volume again, that is increasing our likelihood that our high will have been set this week. And then next week we'll look to potentially come down and start to form a higher low, somewhere above our previous low here at 29,254. So the reason why we think it's likely that we'll form that higher low is because of how far we've risen already off of this low at 29,254. So that is something to consider when we're looking at potentially buying up here. So if we're looking at potentially buying, we need to consider how much we've already risen in this weekly run up and how likely it is for us to continue to keep going up from here without at least coming down and forming a higher low first. So we'll see where we end up here at the end of this week. The other thing that I'm looking for, in addition to the volume, is the candlestick itself. So I'm going to be looking for a couple different factors. One is a longer upper wick. So if we see a longer upper wick, something like this, or even like this down here, that is going to signal to me that people are selling into the rise in price, and we will potentially see a drawdown in the next week. The other thing I'll be looking for is the body of the candle. So that has to do, it's the same, basically the same thing. If you're looking for a longer upper wick, you're looking for a small body in this case. And so if the body is close to the open of the candle, or even below the candle, below the open rather, then that's likely that we're going to come down and form a we're going to just start coming down next week. It's not necessarily true that we'll form a higher low next week, but it means that we'll likely start to come down below this candle's low, which is at 42,748. So those are going to be the factors that I'm watching. The other thing I'm going to be watching is if we close above or below this R2 pivot here. So we've been talking about this pivot for several weeks back here when we were in this kind of range. And we said this is the main resistance zone if we do end up rising up into price. And so we're operating right near that zone right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how we end up reacting to this zone with the weekly candle close. If we close below it in conjunction with a longer upper wick, then that'll really increase the likelihood that we start to come down the next week. If we close above this R2 pivot and we close with a short upper wick, we could see potential continue. The most bullish scenario is close above the R2 pivot at about $46,300, close with a short upper wick of people selling into the rising price, and have increasing bull volume. Now the bulls would have to really push this volume up over the course of a day and 6 hours, but it can be done. But it's something to keep in mind. Usually when you have an explosive run up initially, you see the volume increase significantly, consistently week over week. But you can see that we had increasing volume here on this initial bounce. And then the next week, this candle here, we still had above average bull volume, but it was below the previous week's bull volume. So it looks like we're starting to kind of form that crescent, where you come up, you decrease in volume, and then you slowly come down because you're decreasing in buying volume. So that's what I'm going to be watching on the weekly time frame. If we go down to the 3-day, we can talk about something that we finally just hit, which is this gray resistance zone that I've been talking about since back here in May. So this is the main resistance zone for price now that once we closed 2 candlesticks below this. So it was initially support back here. So if we look, we bounced here and then we bounced here. So now we're running into this zone, and you can see that price is reacting to this level and already having somewhat of a rejection off of this level. So an entry on the bottom of this level, a short, would have already been profitable about 2.4% on spot. So already a profitable trade there if we're looking for that. But obviously for a 3-day level, we're looking for a bigger move than 2.4%, hopefully. So we'll see where this candle ends up closing. This one closes in 2 days and 6 hours. But we can see that we have decreasing bull volume coming into this level. And so it's likely that we will form, that we will end up forming a high here in comparison to our previous high back here at 42,624. We did not touch the daily red resistance zone here that I'll talk about now. This daily resistance zone is from back here when we had our bear trend right here. So we have a high, low, lower high, and then lower low. And so you can see that we haven't tested this level yet. But if we do end up coming into this, this is another main resistance zone for price. So if we continue to push into the 3-day zone, this gray zone here, this is inside of that. So it's just adding confluence to the fact that there's going to be sellers at this level, right around 48.9. The other thing to note on the daily time frame is our light blue support zone right here that we had from our bull trend right here with a low, high, higher low, higher high. You can see as soon as we validated that with 2 candle closes above it, we came in and tested this as support, and then we bounced right off of this zone. So that was the bullish scenario that we talked about when we were initially back here. What was the best scenario for the bulls? This was pretty much the best scenario for the bulls for us to continue that trend. And so now what I'm looking for is a potential for another printing of a level just like this blue one with a candle close above this key high here. So if we close above the August 10th high at 46,790 today, this candle from August 12th will end up being the support zone for price. And then it'll turn into are we going to bounce off of this zone if we come into it? Or are we going to go below this zone and do something like this, where we push below this zone, this black candle right here, close 2 candles below it, and then come back in and retest it as resistance and then reject off of that. So we'll see what happens, but if we end up closing above this, if we close below this high, then this candle it's null. It's not a support, or it's not a support level that we're going to be watching. So we'll be watching that. It closes in 5 hours and 20 minutes. The other thing to note is the super guppy getting ready to finally flip back to being bullish potentially here. So you can see that the faster EMAs have already flipped to be bullish here with the light blue, but we haven't gotten the green flip here on the longer term EMAs, which are gray right now. So you can see that they are starting to roll over here. You can see that in this zone, they've started to kind of cross over, and now we're starting to see them expand here. Now, if we continue to go higher, these will continue to expand, and then we'll get a scenario like this, where when they expand, they provide pretty significant support on a retest. So you can see right here when we came into them, we bounce, come into them, we bounce, come into them, we bounce. And we did that the whole way up this trend until eventually we closed below these right here. And then that basically began our drawdown, which then turned them into it then flipped them to be bearish. And the EMAs here then provided a good entry for short opportunities. So every time we hit the red EMAs, here's an entry, bounce. Here's an entry, down, down, down. Actually, we didn't touch it there quite, but we got close. So same exact thing on the bull side. If we flip these back to being green and expanded, if we come into those EMAs, that will end up leading to probably a pretty good buy zone, in my opinion. So I'll be watching that over the next coming days. And then the Ichimoku cloud, you can see that we did not reject. We did the full edge-to-edge trade that we talked about back here. We started talking about this back here in late July. And we said, once you get a candle close inside of the Ichimoku cloud, which, if we remember from past videos, the edges of the cloud are strong support and resistance. But the inside of the cloud there's nothing there. It's kind of like hot air. So if you're hitting one edge of the cloud like we did right here, you can see we had a rejection because that was resistance. But once we close inside of it, We kind of held it as support here. When we retested it, we had a bounce, and then we closed below it. So this is like a fake out of the edge to edge. Then we closed back inside of it on August 4th. So you could have re-entered the trade there. And then you can see that we rode this up perfectly with a nice trend right up to the top target at 47K. So this trade played out absolutely perfectly in my opinion. So that's interesting. So if you like, indicators that are giving you a few entries every now and then, but the entries that they do give you are pretty profitable, the Ichimoku cloud might be a good indicator for you, because you can see right here, here's another example of an edge to edge. So the cloud is pretty big here. So we close inside of it here. Here's your entry point. As soon as this candle closes right here, we come up for a lower high, and then we come down right to the target. And then we actually obviously go past the target because of liquidations. So, and we went past it slightly here as well. But this is giving you, profit potential of, if you enter right here on the open of this candle from August 5th, you take that up to that 47K level. That is about 18%. That's almost 19% over the course of 9 days. So that's a really good trade setup in my opinion. And if you're taking that on anything other than the spot, so if you're using leverage, that's obviously even more than that. Just 2x would be a 36% gain. So very significant there. The pivots, if we look at the pivot levels, we have the R2 pivot up here to watch at the $50,000 level roughly, and then we have this R1, which we're currently we closed above, and we're currently kind of bouncing off of now, at least short term. So now let's go down to the lower time frames, like the 8-hour. So if we look at this from an 8-hour perspective, we have created a support zone for ourselves here. This candle right here from August 11th. So this is what I was talking about in the last video here, where we had our bear trend right here with a high, low, lower high, lower low, 2 candle closes below the key low, but then we pushed right through this zone. So now that we pushed right through this zone, you can see it's acting as support here, at least to some small extent. And this is going to be the zone to watch moving forward. If we close 2 candlesticks below this zone, this will be a resistance zone for price that I would imagine would hold on a retest. And if we get that retest, it may push us below this support zone here, this blue area, as well as this purple area that we already bounced off of here once. So that's what I'm currently watching on Bitcoin. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you like this video, give it a like down below and subscribe for future educational content around cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And if you'd like to get 24/7 access to all of our trading ideas related to Bitcoin and Ethereum, as well as other educational content around these different assets, you can subscribe using our Patreon channel and get access to our Discord Leutheria Signals channel. There's a link for that in the description below, so check that out. And until tomorrow, onward and upward.